Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the NGO Whisperer Show. My name is Carolyne Opinde. I am the founder of the NGO Whisperer. We are a consulting business that helps nonprofits raise funds so they can successfully impact people's lives. Joining us today from Nairobi, Kenya is Sheila Masinde. Sheila is the Acting Executive Director of Transparency International, Kenya. Sheila has extensive experience working in the nonprofit sector and in the media sector in Kenya. Sheila, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carolyne.
It is such an honor. It is such a pleasure to have you and to reconnect with you, having worked with you in Kenya in the nonprofit sector, focusing on behavior change for young people. And again, here we are on the NGO Whisperer Show, addressing issues around how can we develop a corrupt-free society in Kenya. And for this matter, for any other country or for anyone else who is listening across the globe. So to start us off, Sheila, many people, when you ask them about corruption, they would mention things like bribery, embezzlement of funds, but I know for sure that corruption is bigger than that or has different components and manifests itself in so many ways. From your specialist perspective, what is corruption and how does it manifest itself in the society?
Thank you, Carolyne, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about corruption and the work of Transparency International Kenya on this platform. To start with, we as Transparency International, as a TI movement, we define corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. And corruption can be classified as grant, which we see a lot of and we read about a lot in the papers. It can be defined as petty, which is the kind of corruption an ordinary person, a common citizen would encounter in his or her quest to get services from the police or from the health sector, from a health facility. And then there's also political corruption. Now, just to go back to grant corruption, it consists of acts which are committed at a high level of government. And examples I would give would include Goldenberg, which has been with us for almost 30 years now and yet to be resolved, the Goldenberg scandal. There was the Anglo leasing scandal, which was burst in, was it 2006, 2007, thereabouts. And so those are the kinds of grant corruption, examples of grant corruption that we have experienced in Kenya. I'll go back to petty corruption. And as I said, it refers to everyday abuse of entrusted power by low and middle-level public officials in their interactions with ordinary citizens, and who may be trying to access basic goods or services in hospitals or in schools or from the police, or when it comes to tax or registration of services. And then I talked about political corruption, which is basically a manipulation of policies, institutions, rules, and regulations in the allocation of resources and also financing by political decision makers. Some people would call it state capture.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an elaborative definition of corruption. So corruption can be defined as grant corruption, and every country has examples of grant corruption that they have faced. Then there is petty corruption, like you mentioned, what me, you, and every other good citizen of a country may encounter when they're seeking public services, or sometimes even in the private sector, not just limited to public sector. And then there's also political corruption, where there's abuse of power by people who have been elected in office, such as your senators, governors, members of parliament, local councillors, and so on and so forth. Now, to take us into our topic today and to talk about Transparency International Kenya's work. We are zeroing in on Transparency International's work, and this can be applied across different countries. I'm going to read a quote that I love very much, and I got it from your website, and it reads, "The war against corruption will not be won unless the public develops and sustains pressure on public institutions to provide quality services and for leaders to be accountable." That is a very, very heavy loaded statement. I love it very much because it encompasses the role and responsibility of citizens in ensuring that they live in a corrupt, free society. It also gives citizens the power, or reminds citizens that we have the power to get corruption out of our society. Now, in light of this statement, what are the focus areas that Transparency International looks at when you are fighting corruption, or for a better definition of it, or a better way of saying it is, what is Transparency International doing to ensure that we are creating a corrupt-free society?
Yes, thank you, Caroline. As you said, the war against corruption will not be won unless the public develops and sustains pressure on public institutions and leaders to be able to meet their obligations, or to be able to meet what they have been mandated to deliver by the Kenyan Constitution. So for us, we believe that rooting out corruption requires that those entrusted with power, meaning the leaders that we as citizens have put in office, means that they have to be held to account. Yeah, it's simple. It's the same way you employ or hire someone, give them a job, but you don't just abandon them and leave them to work without supervision or oversight, or without appraising them and looking at their performance. So as Kenyans, as citizens, when we elect these leaders and put them in office, we need to ensure that we are giving them the requisite oversight so that they are able to deliver on their mandate, on their roles and responsibilities as leaders. They need to be held to account. That is one way we say we will be able to fight corruption. We need to also pressure leaders to ensure that they hold other institutions accountable. For instance, our members of parliament, our senators, our members of county assembly, they're supposed to hold the executive to account. We often complain about corruption, about misuse and misappropriation of funds, about loss of resources. But we should do more than just complain. There are people that we have elected to ensure that those resources are used in the right way, so that they are used for their intended purposes and they benefit all citizens of this country. So we need to go back and hold those leaders to account to ensure that that is done. And this is the reason why, before I go back into the areas of our work, I'll go back and quote Article 1 of the Constitution, which states that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. And it goes further to say that the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through democratically elected representatives, which means that we have delegated this responsibility to our leaders. So they do not exist to do or to act on their own whims. They exist to ensure that the roles and responsibilities that are defined in the Constitution are fulfilled, because they're there because we have delegated that key important responsibility of oversight, of public oversight, to them. That is why you'll find that a lot of our interventions are centered around civilian oversight, civilian empowerment, and movement building. And one of the key intervention areas that we currently have, or rather one of our strategic focus areas, is around public accountability, which aims to increase engagement and accountability by citizens and leaders through citizen empowerment and movement building, as well as strengthening civilian oversight. So under this work, we have various interventions through which we engage, try to engage citizens and try to empower them, build their capacity to be able to perform civilian oversight. For instance, through social accountability. So we support citizens to conduct, for instance, social audits, public expenditure tracking, so they can be able to monitor how public resources are being expended. We also apply innovation and ICT to empower the public and enhance civilian engagement. For instance, we have an app which we call the Action for Transparency app that enables citizens to be able to monitor budgets in health, budgets for health facilities and also public schools, and all this information is then put into the app, so they're able to track, and where they have suspicions of corruption or misuse of funds, they're then also able to report to us through the same app. We also mobilize citizens and other actors towards creating formidable movements in the fight against corruption. Now, this fight against corruption cannot be fought by a single person, by a single institution. And that is why we take and invest a lot of effort in empowering and working with other institutions. We work with all sectors. We work with the private sector, we've worked with government, we've worked with religious institutions, we've worked with young people, youth organizations, we've worked with other civil society actors to be able to strengthen the fight against corruption and also give citizens a greater voice in the fight against corruption. We also engage with the media as part of our public accountability work through knowledge sharing, try to build their capacity as well, particularly in terms of coverage of corruption stories. We've tried to empower journalists to be able to undertake investigative journalism for corruption and to cover corruption stories. So media is also very important for us, and they are among our strategic partners as we seek to amplify our public accountability work.
Now, my question to you is this app available for anyone to download on their phones? And how well has it been received, and how well are Kenyan citizens using it? Has it been adopted well by the citizens?
Yes, so we've spent a lot of time trying to publicize this app so that all Kenyans can be able to use it. And it is widely available to all members of the public. For instance, if you're using an Android phone, all you need to go to is go to Play Store, search Action for Transparency, aka A4T, and you will then be able to download just the way you download other applications on your mobile phone. Through the A4T, we also have other knowledge platforms. We have a website where we put all information in regard to corruption in the health and the education sector, and other information we have on public expenditure, so that people can then be able to get more financial information about these sectors, and also other areas and other sectors generally, and on corruption. So far, we have received about 5,000 reports on corruption through and misuse of funds through the Action for Transparency. And so we work also very closely with other stakeholders, other institutions. We forged a relationship with the Ministry of Education as well. And we're also trying to build the capacity of education stakeholders, particularly the school communities, the boards of management, the head teachers, and other key people that are key in the school community that will be critical in terms of ensuring that oversight is conducted in the education sector. So build their capacity to be able to use this app, and also to be able to also give us the requisite information, because this information has to come from somewhere. So for instance, the information on the budgets and the information on the expenditure, when we conduct our public expenditure tracking surveys, we get the information from the head teachers. And so it means that we have to forge very close working relationships with them so that we can have access to this information.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I know working in the nonprofit sector that advocacy at the community level all the way to the national government level is critical if you are working in creating any change in any community. And in Kenya, I know that there are many, many, many organizations that are also supporting the work that Transparency International Kenya is doing. So looking at advocacy as an approach that you use alongside many others approaches, what projects are you currently implementing in collaboration with existing partners at the community level?
Yeah. So we're currently conducting a number of interventions. As I mentioned, I've already talked about the social accountability work through the Action for Transparency project. We are, other than the public accountability work, we also have what we call the Policy, Legal and Institutional Frameworks program, which basically looks at issues around policy and legislation that will support the fight against corruption. So we focus on the formulation or reformulation or amendment of laws, and also advocacy of laws that will support the fight against corruption. I can tell you that over the last more than, say, 11, 12 years, we have successfully drafted, proposed amendments, and also advocated for reformulation or formulation of over 20 accountability, anti-corruption focused laws or policies, not just
well done, well done, well done, well done. I know there's more work to be done, but I just needed to say well done for the great work you're doing. Carry on.
Yes, so we've supported the amendment and also the formulation of over 20 anti-corruption focused laws or policies, not just at the national level, but also at the county level. For instance, we were the front line in the development and advocacy for the Leadership and Integrity Act. If you go to the Constitution, there's a beautiful chapter, I think the most progressive chapter in the Constitution, chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. And so following that chapter in the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, we supported the development of the Leadership and Integrity Act and had pushed for its enactment. We also supported the development of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption and Commission Act and subsequent amendments that have followed, the last being, I think, in 2015. There's been the Access to Information Act, which we worked on for many years, more than 15 years, and finally was enacted in 2016, and still following it because now we are looking at regulations to enable full implementation of the law. We have also worked on public procurement legislation. Currently, we worked previously on the Election Campaign Finance Act, which was enacted in 2013. And currently we are looking at amendments that will ensure that come 2022, during the next elections, that we'll have more transparency in terms of campaign funding by candidates, by political candidates and political parties. So that's something we're also working on actively currently. And another one we are also, which is on our radar right now, is a law on whistleblower protection to ensure that Kenyans who come forth with reports on corruption are well protected and they feel safe and secure when they come forth with reports on corruption. So that's a law we've been working on for the last more than 5 years and hoping that it will see the light of day and get enacted. So several laws at the county and national level, that's one of the key interventions we're working on at the moment. We also have work around climate governance, and we are currently implementing a project that seeks to promote climate risk insurance. as a viable option by the government to financing adaptation to impacts of climate change. And you know that the impacts we have suffered as a country, as a continent, with regard to climate change, and that is why this is important to us. And additionally, we're also advocating for a human rights-based approach to climate risk insurance. And we have also, for a long time, have dedicated quite a lot of our time, and we have a project monitoring finances for climate change interventions to ensure effective utilization. We also have a project on open contracting for health, where we are engaging both the private sector, the government at the county level, also the national level, and civil society in regard to the different roles that they can play in the publication and utilization of procurement data at county and national level, so that we ensure that we have more transparent and accountable procurement processes in the public sector. You know that public procurement remains at the epicenter of corruption in this country, and that is why accountability in public procurement is key, and want to ensure that these processes are transparent and Kenyans have information on procurement that is conducted within the public sector.
That is very, very interesting. And I can see that you are going right to the root of where corruption is very widely spread. Talk about procurement system, the judicial system, access to services in different sectors, whether it's the criminal justice system, whether it's the health system, education, within communities. I really, really want you to delve deeper and let us know how else are you working with the communities, or what projects are you implementing further beyond the ones that you've shared with us?
Yes, thank you, Caroline. We are also working in terms of building the capacity and building integrity management within the police sector. As you and many others may be aware, from time immemorial, we've conducted research, specifically the bribery index. And every time we conduct the bribery index, the police are always listed as one of the most bribery prone institutions in the country. And we always had this question of, okay, so what? You keep listing the police. Why are you doing anything about it? What are you doing to help them come out of, that tag of the most bribery prone institution in the country? So one of the things we did is we conceptualized work to support them in strengthening integrity management initiatives at the National Police Service. And we have conducted anti-corruption training for the police service, National Police Service, and also supported the setup of a complaints mechanism at the Internal Affairs Unit to increase transparency, and also to enable citizens to be able to report cases of bribery or other misdemeanors conducted by the police that they may encounter as they seek services from the police service. And that is under our democracy, human rights, and governance project. We're also working at the county level, where we are focusing on Kwale County, and through coalition building and with engagement with the members of the county assembly, to particularly increase their capacity to be able to provide oversight at the county level.
But why Kwale specifically? Is there a reason why you chose to work in Kwale and not any other county?
Well, our work is evidence-based. For Kwale, and we're working in other counties, even with the MCAs, and in trying to increase their oversight capability at the county level. But for Kwale County, one of the reasons why we landed on Kwale County is that a few years ago, in 2014, we conducted what we call the Local Integrity System Study to be able to assess issues around access to information, public participation, and other integrity mechanisms at the county level. So looking at the executive, at the county assembly, and other county structures. So what we're doing now, while we are following up with working with the MCAs in Kwale County, is we are trying now to implement the recommendations. We are trying to implement the recommendations and of that particular report. But particularly, we also did a follow-up local integrity systems survey last year for Kwale County, So waiting to finalize that. And then when we finalize that, we'll also be able to upscale the implementation and also other interventions that we have with both the MCAs and maybe the county executive as well.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for highlighting the amazing work that you are doing in Kwale County. How are you going to scale it up and roll it out, working with other members of the county assemblies across the many other counties in the country that you are currently operating in?
Thank you. We have already scaled it up, and we are also working in other counties. For instance, we have been working in Uasin Gishu. We have been working with the MCAs in Machakos as well, and also the MCAs in Kakamega County and other parts of Western Kenya. So one of the ways in which we are trying to sustain our engagement with the members of the county assembly and continuously build their capacity to be able to provide, to be able to conduct and fulfill their mandates, particularly in regards to providing oversight at the county level and also performing the legislative functions, is through the formation of what we call the County Assembly Representatives Network Against Corruption. Because we're also looking at having a structured vehicle through which we can engage with them and continuously build their capacity. So it's not just in Kwale, but other counties as well. And as we continue to grow our work, particularly at the county level, we'll be looking to see how we can even scale it up to other counties, so that we can support the county governments, particularly the county assemblies, to be able to perform their functions as they should.
So I know in Kenya there are 47 counties and you work in all of them, but the ones you're mentioning, you're just highlighting ongoing projects and work. Is that correct?
Well, we currently, we don't have projects in all the counties.
Okay.
I can say that our work currently has directly touched about 24 to 25 counties.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have work that is national in scope. So meaning that we get to, or when you talk about devolution, we're not just talking about devolution in one particular county, right, but we are advocating for accountability in county governance in all the counties. But when it comes to specific projects and in particular sectors, we have been able to work in about 25 counties to date.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for the amazing work you're doing in over 20 counties out of the 47 counties that we have in Kenya. My question to you is, should you have unlimited resources, what would you achieve in Kenya today?
Well, there's a need for us to work in all 47 counties, and we really wish we could. It is just because of resource challenges that we are unable to currently have a foothold in all the 47 counties. Mm-hmm. And that is why we've been constrained to work in just a few counties, and particularly in many of those counties looking at specific sectors. But if we had limitless resources, we would want to have a presence and to have active interventions in all the 47 counties. The success in the fight against corruption will need all Kenyans being able to be a part of the fight against corruption. We need all Kenyans involved, we need all Kenyans empowered, we need all Kenyans engaged. And so civilian oversight is key. So if we had more resources, we'd also invest a lot of effort in building civilian oversight structures, ensuring that Kenyans are involved in social accountability initiatives, so they're able to actually assess and be involved in the projects that are coming up in their name at the county level, at the grassroots level, and ensure that they're able to hold their leaders to account from the top to the bottom. We'd also wish that we can give Kenyans more avenues to be able to report corruption. One of the things that we do is we run what we call the advocacy and legal advisory centers, where victims and witnesses of corruption can report cases of corruption that they have encountered or witnessed.
And how many of those centers do you have in Kenya right now?
Currently, we have 4 centers, one in Nairobi, supporting the wider Nairobi region, the Nairobi metro, what you'd call the Nairobi metropolitan region, including Kajiado and Machakos and Kiambu. We have an advocacy and legal advisory center. We call them ALACs. We have an ALAC in Kisumu, which covers the western region, Kakamega, Siaya, Kisumu, Bungoma, and Siaya. We have one in the North Rift, based in Eldoret, and we have one in Mombasa, which covers the coastal region. So in these centers, 4 centers, but we other than physical, walk-ins, we encourage people to come to our office to report corruption, but we also have a toll-free and a free SMS line where people can call or send messages when they have encountered cases of corruption. So that means that we are then able to provide redress and legal advice to other Kenyans who may not necessarily be in those regions, but may have witnessed corruption in other areas. And so then they'll be able to call, SMS, or even email and give us details, and we'll call them back and give them the requisite legal advice.
How useful is it, and are we winning this war against corruption in Kenya?
It's very useful to provide avenues through which citizens can be able to report corruption. One of the things that Kenyans do little of is to report corruption or wrongdoing to authorities. In our bribery index for 2017, we found that only 6% of Kenyans who will encounter bribery incidents will report, meaning that 94% who will encounter these incidents would rather just walk away from it. If they've been asked to pay a bribe, they will pay a bribe and walk away from the situation or the incident and just move on with life. So a lot of reports on corruption don't see the light of day because people do not report them, and they don't report them for various reasons. One, sometimes they'll say, I didn't know where to report. They say, I feared, I had a fear of reprisal or fear of retaliation, that if I report, then I would not be given the services that I required, or maybe I would be intimidated by the person I reported. Or some will say that even if I report, will there be any action that will be taken by the authorities? So there are a lot of factors why Kenyans don't report. So it's important to continuously share these avenues where people can report, encourage people, break it down. What are the procedures? How and where can you report? So we not only encourage people to come to report to our ALACs, we also encourage them to report to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And indeed, we work very closely with other agencies, other public agencies, other independent commissions that are dealing with different kinds of complaints. So with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission on the corruption complaints, with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights related complaints, and with the Commission on Administrative of Justice, that is the Ombudsman, on other administrative related complaints. So we're trying also to work with other institutions such that whenever we get any kind of report, so that if it's not a corruption report, we'll have other avenues or other agencies to which we can refer Kenyans to, because it's important to ensure that Kenyans have avenues to which they report. When they come to you and you tell them, oh no, I can't handle that, go to so-and-so, that already, by the time someone has come to report to you, they've had to master a lot of courage. Absolutely. And it's almost as a last resort. So when they come to you, we try as much as possible to build our referral network so that we are still able to give them hope and give them other places and refer them to other places where they can seek redress. So reporting of corruption is a culture we're trying to build. And in fact, I normally say that as we try to build behavior change in the fight against corruption, one of the muscles that we'll have to build is our citizens' capacity and knowledge to be able to report corruption. So give them the courage to be able to report. And that is one of the reasons why I mentioned that one of the laws we are actively following up on is on the whistleblower protection law.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that will be key and a game changer in Kenya to turn around incidences of corruption and to reduce it, especially when you speak about the the police, the criminal justice system, the judicial system, the education, procurement, and tendering processes. That will be key, because most people who are in those sectors may want to report it, but they are afraid. And if they report it, they don't know what will happen to their daily bread.
Exactly. Exactly. As I said, there's a lot, the fear of intimidation, fear of reprisal, that it will come back to you.
Yes.
And when it comes to, especially when it comes to grand corruption, you'll see that people will say, I fear that I would lose my job. And we have cases in Kenya of whistleblowers. Remember the Golden Bag whistleblower, Munyakei, who lost his job at the central bank for coming forth with that report on the Golden Bag scandal. So a lot of people fear reporting because they say, I may lose my job, or I may not get a promotion in my workplace, or I may be sidelined in my place of work if I report.
How can a good citizen or anyone else who lives in Kenya be part of the great work that you are doing?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, every Kenyan should be a part of the fight against corruption. As I said, when you look at Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. So it means that we should be more involved in governance processes in this country. Now, as TI, what we are doing to ensure that every single Kenyan is involved in the fight against corruption is by ensuring that we give them information to be able to empower them and strengthen their capacity, because you have to start from the point of providing information. And once we get to that level, and I think we have as a country, we've gotten to that level where Kenyans know they know how corruption looks like, they know how it feels like, they know how it smells like. And now we want to move to the next stage, because we have spent a lot of time in terms of building awareness. Now we want to move to the next stage of action, where we are now getting citizens to act against corruption. How do we act against corruption? It is as simple as, for instance, reporting. When you see an act of corruption, report it. You have put leaders in office, hold them accountable. So those are some of the simple actions I believe Kenyans can do to be able to support the fight against corruption. Hold your leaders, hold your institutions to account, for the use and the utilization of resources, for decisions that have been made, and so on, so that we can be able to get to a point where we have an accountable and transparent society.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for all the information you've shared with us and how we can move from knowledge and awareness to now taking action against corruption. As we come to the end, what are the projects or the work that you're currently doing that is now going to take us to the next level of actually taking action against corruption? You could probably also speak about the work that you're doing with various stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Caroline. One of the things we've been trying to push for in the fight against corruption is results. We've gotten to a point where Kenyans are a bit frustrated that despite all the action they have seen in the courts, high-ranking individuals, politicians have been arraigned in court, have been charged, but we are yet to see the fruits of all these processes. And what we have said is that we need to see convictions. We just don't want to see arrests. We don't just want to see arraignments. We want to see people convicted. We want to see people being given prison sentences that are commensurate to the amounts of money that they have stolen from public coffers. And one of the things we designed for Kenyans to be able to monitor corruption cases is a RADA database. So through this database, we hope to be able to provide and cause the requisite accountability so that institutions that are responsible for investigation and prosecution and adjudication are held to account. And for them to be held to account, we basically need to see the results of their work. So that is why now we have this database where Kenyans can go and follow up on concluded corruption cases. And so that we're also able to stimulate discourse on challenges and also successes in the investigation, prosecution, and adjudication of corruption cases in Kenya. The other result that Kenyans need to see is recovery of monies that we have lost in corruption. So that is also now one of our key focus areas. How do we intensify asset recovery efforts? Yeah, because if we don't show results in the fight against corruption through convictions and through funds that have been lost and have now been recovered, then we will lose Kenyans in the fight against corruption. They will remain indifferent and they will not want to be involved in a fight that is not being won. So we need to show that we are winning this fight by demonstrating the results.
That is wonderful. As a Kenyan and as someone who's lived also outside the country, it gives me hope to see the amazing work that you are doing and knowing that the fight against corruption in Kenya and in any other country across the globe cannot be won unless the members of the public are first and foremost aware of what corruption is, which most of us do know, and then take action as you have highly recommended. Take action and responsibility to report it and hold our leaders accountable. So for all my beloved brothers and sisters in Kenya, ndugu zangu, dada zangu, wa Kenya wenzangu, vita dhidi ya ufisadi iko mikononi mwenyu. I just spoke in Swahili saying, my Kenyan brothers and sisters, the fight against corruption is in your hands. Those leaders in position were elected by you, and you can hold them accountable at any point. And should they be not fit to be in position, you have the power to get them out of those positions that they hold. Let's not blame one another. Sheila, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for making time to join us today at the NGO Whisperer Show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the end of the NGO Whisperer Show for this episode, I want to read again the quote that I read at the beginning. And this is a quote that I found on the website of Transparency International Kenya. It reads, "The war against corruption will not be won unless the public, which is me and you, develops and sustains pressure on public institutions to provide quality services and for our leaders to be accountable. The power is in your hands to hold those leaders accountable and to pressure them to provide quality services." Today, we've learned how we can, as Kenyans and any other country around the world, how members of the public can hold their leaders accountable. Take these lessons, apply them to your country, find out an equivalent of a Transparency International Kenya in your country, and hold your leaders accountable, because it's all about all of us working together. Thank you, everyone. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The NGO Whisperer, to watch more episodes of season 2 of the NGO Whisperer Show. It's all about connecting people, raising funds, and impacting lives globally.